Hey everybody, Art Burns here. Hope you're all having a great day today. I wish you well. So yesterday I talked about paying attention to what is, as opposed to paying attention to what might be or what could have or should have been, right? And the idea of paying attention to what is, right, is the same thing as paying attention in the present moment, right? And this is the very essence of mindfulness practices. And the more we do this, right, the more we practice paying attention in the present moment, paying attention to what is right here, right now, without judgment, the more we build a skill that becomes a habit of paying attention right here, right now. And this is something that eventually becomes very effortless, right? We kind of, it becomes an automatic, kind of default of the mind to pay attention to what is happening right here, right now. And the reason, as I said, one of the reasons why this is so valuable to us is that, especially as it relates to stress in our bodies, is that the stress is going to come from when we're thinking about outcomes, or we're thinking about how we got to this particular place in our life, this particular moment. That's where stress lives, in that future thought or that past thought, right? And that's because that's where fear lives, right? Like whether it's whatever that you're thinking about is going to happen. The tendency of the mind is to look at the worst possible case scenario, right? And so therefore you're going to always assume the worst possible outcome, and you're going to notice and remember the worst possible traits of what happened in the past, and this is going to inspire fear, and this is where stress is going to come into your body, right? So I'd like to go a little further on why this happens, or how this kind of happens, right? Essentially, aside from the negativity bias that we all have, right? We all have this negativity bias that makes us kind of look at the worst possible outcome, the worst possible situation, right? Because, that's our survival mode, right? That's our body's way of keeping us safe, right? Watch out for the bad stuff, right? But aside from that, we also have this other tendency, right? We have this tendency to cling to the things that we feel are good things, right? And to push away from and avoid the things that we think are bad things. Now, essentially, that doesn't sound like a bad thing, right? That doesn't sound like anything's wrong with that, right? But what happens is, when we're having a present experience, right, and if we're not really paying attention to the present experience, but instead we're paying attention to how this present experience will translate into the future, right? That's when we're going to start thinking about, again, together with that negativity bias and the tendency to cling to the good and push away from the bad. What this creates is a situation in which we're projecting ourselves into that future, right? And we're thinking about, okay, I don't want this good. Like, I tell this story all the time about, like, when I used to take vacations, right? Back when I was in corporate world, I'd have regular vacations every year, and I'd go away to the beach or something, right? And say I was at the beach for 5 days, right? By the third day, I was thinking mostly about the fact that I have to go home in 2 more days, right? I have to pack my bags. I didn't do all the stuff that I wanted to do. I wasted all this time. It's opportunity that I'm not going to get again. And all these thoughts used to come through my head, right? And this means what happens essentially is that I'm not enjoying now the final 2 days of my vacation, right? Like, it's over. I might as well have just taken a 3-day vacation instead of a 5-day vacation, because I'm sacrificing it, right? I'm not living in those moments in those last 2 days. I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, I got to pack my bags. I got to get on the plane. I got to go home. I got to go back to work. I got to do all this stuff. And that's, and then again, in the past, it's like, but I really wanted to do this, I wanted to go windsurfing, or I wanted to, try the jet skis or the parasailing or whatever it was, right? And I didn't get to do that, right? And so I screwed up, 2 days ago by not doing that, right? And so now my mind's here and my mind's here, my mind's not right here, and therefore I'm not enjoying myself, right? And what happens is, when you start to feel when you start to think about getting on the plane, going to work, this is is avoiding those, this is aversion to those things that that you don't want, right? And what happens is, because again, our negativity bias is going to push us to thinking about those things, right? Those things that are worrying us, those things that are bothering us, right? And this means that's what's going to consume my thoughts, and therefore I'm going to sense a fear about it, right? I'm going to get into a sense of like, oh my gosh, I gotta pack my bags. I don't want to do that. Now I'm afraid. Now I've got this stress coming into my body as a result of thinking about packing my bags. There's no need to think about packing my bags on Wednesday when I'm going home on Friday, right? There's no point to it, right? Like my bags are not going to get packed any faster or any better by worrying about it today, right? And I certainly don't have to spend 2 days. It's not like I'm packing up a house, right? It's a suitcase, right? So the thing is that because we get into that, that thinking about the future, but specifically in a way that is involved with aversion, right? Like I don't want this to happen, right? I want to cling to this good time of the vacation. I don't want the vacation to end, and so therefore I get into this aversion, right? And so that creates the emotion of fear, which is going to make me feel stressed out, right? And then again, then I'm not enjoying anything, right? And so and then when you start thinking about the past and you start thinking about, well, shoot, 4 days ago I should have done that parasailing, because now I'm never going to get the chance to go parasailing again, whether that's true or not, right? What happens is when we start thinking about anytime we're using the words, should have, shouldn't have, all those kind of those terms in our mind, what we're doing is we're pushing ourselves into an emotion of shame, right? Because we're thinking like, gosh, I screwed up. I should have done this. I'm a bad person. I screwed up, right? And that is the emotion of shame, right? Which is also going to create a level of fear, right? Because we don't want to feel shame, right? Shame doesn't feel good to us, right? So instead of, so while we're clinging to this idea that I should have, gone parasailing on Tuesday, now I'm not going to get the chance, right? Now I'm getting back into that emotion of fear that goes through shame, which results in stress, right? And that's the way it works, right? And so again, what we do is we wind up getting ourselves into these places of feeling, this body reaction that we have to these mental sort of notions that we have, right? And that's what the stress response is, right? It's a physical response to a mental or emotional experience, right? Because your body doesn't know how to react any other way. That's the problem, right? And so the other example of this is traffic jams, right? This is one that I love to talk about, right? Because we all get stuck in traffic jams, right? And this is just another example of how accepting because the opposite of aversion, right, is accepting, and the opposite of clinging is letting go. And incidentally, before I get into this story about the traffic jam, when we practice mindfulness, right, when we practice meditation formally and we practice mindfulness, informally, what we're doing is, when we're sitting there, so especially formal meditation, it's easier to sort of illustrate here. When we're practicing formal meditation, right, what we're doing is we're focusing our mind on our breath, right? At least that's the way that I teach meditation. You focus your mind on your breath, and as you're doing that, your mind is going to wander. Right? It's always going to happen, right? And when your mind wanders, what we do is we practice letting go of that wandering and bringing our mind back to our breath, right? The other thing that we practice is that sometimes during meditation you feel thirsty, or you feel, maybe a little, your back, doesn't feel great, or your sensations of your body might be happening in a way that you don't necessarily want them to happen. What we practice then is accepting this to be the way it is, right? And when we accept it, right, when we say, okay, yes, I'm thirsty, but I'm only going to be sitting here for a short period of time. Even if it's a full hour, it's only an hour, right? I can deal with being thirsty for an hour. So allow yourself to accept the fact that your discomfort from your thirst is impermanent, right? So that's what we're practicing, right? And so that's the opposite of aversion. The opposite of aversion is acceptance, and the opposite of clinging is letting go, right? So that's how we practice these things and develop them as a skill. So, getting back to traffic jams, and we've all been in traffic jams, right? So you're on your way somewhere, and you're maybe even running a little late, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a traffic jam. Nothing you can do, right? There's no way that you can get out of that traffic jam. The exit is 2 miles ahead. There's nothing that you can do to get around it, right? You can't go back in time and leave an hour earlier. You can't go around this traffic jam. You don't have this like Inspector Gadget kind of helicopter car that can get you out of the traffic jam, which is all the things that we think about. At least I think about when I'm stuck in traffic. But so now you have two choices, right? You can sit there and say, why don't I have an Inspector Gadget car? This is terrible. They bang on the steering wheel or squeeze the steering wheel or yell or do whatever you're going to do, right? However you're going to express this extreme aversion to being stuck in this traffic jam, right? You could do that, right? Or you could simply accept the fact that you're in the traffic jam. And not that it's good, not that you're accepting it to say like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. No, you're still going to miss your appointment. You're still going to be late. You're still going to, maybe it's a very important appointment. This could be really, there could be very serious consequences to this traffic jam, okay? But the thing is that by being upset with it, by yelling at the dashboard of your car because you don't have an Inspector Gadget helicopter to come out of the top, you don't have the button to push for that, squeezing the steering wheel because you're so angry that this is happening to you, right? The thing that doesn't change between doing all that and just accepting the fact that you're in traffic and just doing the best you can to get out of it as soon as you can and maintain your state of equilibrium and calm. The thing that doesn't change between those two reactions that you're having is the traffic. Right? The traffic is still there, right? It's not going to change no matter how much you yell or squeeze or bang or curse or whatever it is that you're doing. The traffic is not going to change, right? So that's where, that kind of concept of acceptance is really, really integral to what we're talking about. Now, again, when you're in that traffic jam, the reason why you're so, you get so stressed out through that aversion of the traffic jam is because you're thinking about what's going to happen when I get there. What's going to happen? How bad is this situation going to be, right? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to, not get this new job? Am I going to, miss this appointment? It's going to, ruin my life, right? Like that's what you're thinking. And when you're thinking that, the problem is that your brain and your physical brain and your body, they think that whatever you're projecting as the worst possible situation is already happening, right? So if you think you might lose your job, your brain is reacting as if you're losing your job right now, right? Because your brain is always in the present, right? It's reacting to things. It's reacting to stimulus from the outside or emotions from the inside, right? But it's always doing so right now, right? It's our sort of imagination that creates that future or the past, right? And so again, what is the the antidote for that in the traffic, right? It is to first pay attention to what is, right? Like, okay, yes, this is bad. I'm in this bad traffic jam, and I wish that I wasn't. And it's there's going to possibly be some kind of consequences, right? But right now, I am safe. Right now, I'm in a car. I have the air conditioner on, or I don't, whatever. But even if I'm sweating, right, I'm still safe, right? I have my seatbelt on. I have, I'm safe and as comfortable as can be inside this car, right? And I'm breathing, right? The fact that I'm breathing means that generally speaking, there is more right with me right now than there is wrong with me right now, right? And so again, paying attention to what is, right? Like focusing in on what is, right? And then what we're doing then is that is allowing us now to accept the fact that this is just what's happening, right? Like we're stuck in traffic and there's literally nothing I can do. So the best thing I can do is to just accept what is happening right now. Now that doesn't mean that I don't try to edge over so that I'm ready for that exit as soon as it comes up, right? It doesn't mean that I don't pick up my cell phone and call and try to mitigate whatever, consequences or damage might arise from this particular situation, right? It doesn't mean like just accept it and, oh, okay, life will go on. It's okay if I go broke and I lose my home and my family. That's not at all what I'm talking about. But it's accepting the fact that the traffic is happening. That is going to keep you in the best possible state of mind to handle whatever those consequences might come, right? And that's the key, right? So that's what mindfulness practices are all about. Now, again, the more you practice this, right now you're probably thinking like, wow, so I got to really work on staying present when I'm in a traffic jam or on my vacation or whatever it is, right? And yes, in the beginning it is work, but the more we practice meditation and informal mindfulness practices, the more it becomes automatic, right? And that can happen in a very short time, much shorter than you might think. So if you'd like to talk about that and you want to learn about some of these practices and get an idea for how long it will take, I can certainly listen to how long you're willing to invest every day and how long it will take you to get to the point where it is relatively automatic and the default of your whole thing to be more present and to be more accepting. Okay, but it's likely to be much shorter than you think it is. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Hope you're all having a great day. I wish you well. Take care.